So welcome back to my channel. This is Dom and a continuation of our play along Black Powder game. So a reminder, if you haven't already watched the previous editions, we have a fairly large full brigade French and Allied force trying to capture the crossing point and the village associated with it over there, which is currently held by a Prussian brigade, and two Russian brigades have come on to basically to save the Prussians from a fate worse than Frenching. We're at turn 4. Thanks for all the suggestions on what should go on. Mixed bag. Looking at most of them, they seem to be fairly unanimous that the bulk of the French forces that aren't already committed should push hard for the village. And I think that's probably a sensible thing to do. Some people thought continuing to push across the river into the Grenadiers that have come on would be a good idea. I'm sort of wondering whether actually that's... I think the majority were going after the village, so that's what we'll continue to do. So a reminder, there's a French brigade already engaged along the waterline with the Russians. They were pushed back one battalion of Prussians, shook them without too many casualties of their own, but have faced the wrath of the Russians who've just arrived, and it's not looking quite so safe for the French over here anymore, let's say. Meanwhile, in the village, the Neapolitans from turn 2 basically charged in and have been fighting for control of that village the whole time without much... well, they're not taking any losses, and they're slowly wearing down those Prussians, which is a really good thing that all those Russian infantry have arrived just behind the Prussian village, just in case they need to throw back out. Over here you've got the Württembergers have arrived. They arrived to turn late, but they're here now, and another French brigade that came on. So we're going to start with turn 4. I think what we shall do is start out here on the left, because that's where I'm standing. So the French brigade here, what are they going to do? So we've got a disordered brigade, and this one's got 2 losses. So this guy is in a bit of trouble because of the Russian Jagers are coming around their flank, but because he's disordered, there's not an awful lot he can do. So I think they're really just going to have to stay exactly where they are. The 2-man battalion, or the battalion with 2 losses there, is kind of a bit stuck as well. And that's not really, I don't know quite else to do with these fellas. I think what we might do, I'm tempted to charge that French battalion against the Russians, but then it's going to be outnumbered because it won't have any support. Plus it'll be disordered. No, that wouldn't be a sensible thing to do. We'll stay exactly where we are. I think the only thing this brigade is going to do, the commander here is going to try and rally off some casualties. So that's what we'll do. Rolls a 9, so that is actually a failure. So he can't move. Might come back with a battalion reroll, we'll see. But that's basically it for that brigade. So that wasn't very exciting. Lots of thinking and nothing much happened. Over here with this brigade, as I say, most people seem to think that they should go for the village, so that's what we'll do. So we'll move them as far as we can in the direction of the village. Rolls a 10. However, because they have passed the charge, they get -2 off their roll, which gives them 1 move. Oh, sugar. 1 move, so I'll move them and we'll be back. Okay, so all the infantry are hopped over the hedge. They're slowed to half speed because of that, and also these guys are in the ploughed field, which slows as well. So the artillery, I think, again, most people seem to like the idea that they should bombard the village if they ever get a chance. So I'm going to basically get them to move forward 2 moves and unlimber if they can. They roll 6, which they're at level 8 commander. So that's the 2 moves. Both are slowed because of the field there, so they get to there but haven't unlimbered yet. So that's the end of the brigade's turn. Let's move on over. we'll come back to Württembergers. We'll carry on with the Neapolitans. So the 2 brigades are already in combat, so there's nothing they can do. The infantry line, I think they'll advance towards the Prussians. That seems like the best thing to do. So they roll a 6. They're unreliable. So 6 is fine. There's still one move. So they can move forward. We'll put them in close range of that artillery. Somebody was slightly criticising me for withdrawing the artillery rather than put this battalion in line. And the reason why I didn't do that was the Prussians probably are safer in column than they are in line. And I thought actually exactly this scenario, that the Neapolitans coming forward are going to get a load of grape shot from those, but I think we need to push, and we need to try and put some pressure on that this Prussian battalion, which is here, is already on 2 losses. So that's basically all this brigade can do. Oh, they've got a gun still, haven't we? What we'll do with the Neapolitan guns. Well, they can at least fire from where they are, so I think we'll stay there. Maybe they'll just inch forward. Oh, they get a bit more than an inch forward if they wanted it, but I think we'll just move them. Oops, sorry, I'm not pointing the camera at this. There we go. So they'll just move to the front of this hill. You may have noticed I'm using Guard French guns because I don't know why, I just did. Right, that is the Portuguese, that's the Neapolitans done. So on with the Württembergers. I think they're gonna, what to do with them? I think it makes sense for them to push up and try and eventually take over from the Neapolitans. So all the infantry, so there's 4 brigades here, 4 battalions, one of which is a small one. Now I'll tell you what we're going to do. Somebody did suggest this as well, that they should attack round to the right a bit, angle to the right. So we're going to go with the Jagers and the light battalion, and they're going to go as far as they can that way. Yeah. They roll a 5. I've just put the tape measure down somewhere, and I don't know what I've done with it. So they get 3 moves. 3 moves, and then we'll also, the infantry behind will just push up behind the Neapolitans. They get 2 moves. Actually, that goes up to 3 because they're in column. No, it doesn't. Scratch that. So they get 2 moves for them. So that's 2 moves for the central formation. I'll just mark that well, I think, so I don't forget. And then 3 for the light. And then the artillery, then we're going to try and push them up onto the hill behind the Neapolitans. So they're going to move as far as they possibly can. They get a 7, so it's just the 1 move for them. So I'll move all that and I'll be back. Right, so there we go. The artillery only got 1 move and they were slowed by the field, so they just get to there. The light brigade, or light part of the brigade, got 3 moves, so even though the first part was slowed by the field, they rushed ahead. The columns of infantry have moved up in support of the centre. So we'll move on to some firing. Might as well start on this side of the table. Oops. The Neapolitan battery that's here and unlimbered will fire at... Well, they can't fire into the village because there's a combat ongoing, so they'll have to fire at the Prussian battalion that's out there. It's long range, so it's going to be 1 dice. They are hitting on a would be 4, long range 5, overhead 6. 6 is to hit. Oh, and I've just killed a Jaeger. That was a miss. So first shot from the Neapolitans was pointless. The infantry in line will also fire just outside of 6 by the look of it. Let me just go around and actually measure that centre of the... Oh, it's... Yeah, they're in 6. They're in 6. So we'll give them that. They only get 2 dice because Neapolitans aren't very good shots. It's going to be a 4 down to a 3. One hit. The column is saving on a 3 and does save. So no effect from that volley. What should we do elsewise? There's nothing else to fire on this side of the table. Moving over, only things we've got are in the... We've got the column here, which is disordered. We'll fire at the Prussians on 3 losses. It's only 1 dice. In fact, both these columns will fire at the Prussians. So it's 2 shots, 1 from each. They will be hitting on a 4 down to a 5 because they're disordered. The shot's going through cover. So that's a 6s basically. 6s for that, rolls a 4, and 5 for the undisordered block. No, so no effect. So we'll take the disorder off because they've done everything they're going to go this turn. In the centre, or in the more of the centre of the line here, this line will fire at the Russian Pavlovs here. So that's going to be 3 dice. We'll be hitting on a 4 down to a 5 because they've got cover. Oh, not a good shot, missed it entirely. And then the one here will fire at, I think they'll fire at the Pavlovs too, but will be 6s. Oh, got one. So it's a disordering hit on the Pavlovs. They have a saving roll of 4. So they don't pass. So that is a loss on those ones. Pavlovs take the first wound and are disordered. And then we have the French battery here, who will fire at the closest target for them. They don't have to fire at the Jagers because they're in skirmish. Could fire at them. Actually, thinking about it, they're partially concealed because they're in cover. So we could fire that column, which I think is what we'll do. It's only 1 dice, but it will be hitting on a 4, range 5, cover 6, back to a 5 because you're firing at a column. No, doesn't matter what I rolled, a 1 is going to be a failure. So that was pretty pathetic. That disorder comes off that column. And we're over to the Russian-Prussian turn. Okay, so... I think everybody fairly agreed that the Russians should basically try and hold this river for the time being, and I think that makes sense. I think the only thing somebody had a good suggestion, which is kind of what we're already doing, with the Jaegers should try and work their way around the flank of that column. So that's what we'll try. So they will need to do a move, which is going to be an 8. They roll a 7, so 1 move. Now they could have done an initiative move, but initiative is only if you're moving directly towards the enemy, and because we're trying to move around the flank, we're not. So we don't have to do that. So they are here in skirmish formation. Because remember, these are Jaegers, despite what they may look like. That column is in a little bit of trouble. May have to think about withdrawing from there. The Pavlovs can't do anything because they are disordered. So we've got this column here in the middle. Now again, I don't really see, and the orders people gave me were that the Russians should mainly hold this river. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're just going to, because they can't really push in the same way as the French couldn't push across against the Prussians because they were disordered and there's cover and everything else. I think it makes sense for the Russians just basically to shake out into line. So they'll do that, roll the dice, roll a 7, so they will basically just form out into line here. So there we go, that is the Russian turn done. Both formations, everything's into line apart from the skirmishers. The Prussian brigade. Now this is a bit tricky here. So you've got this brigade, this battalion here is 3 losses. So it's no longer shaken, which is good. We've got a battalion in support in the river, ready to help throw back the dastardly Neapolitans if they manage to get in. And we've got another battalion in the building on 2 wounds, which is only one off being shaken, which has been a real surprise. Those Neapolitans have actually fought beautifully in there. And then the battalion out on the flank still has 2 losses. I'm tempted because they've got some support coming up behind. The trouble is, yeah, I think what I'm going to do. Oh, this is tricky. So my options here are: I'm a naturally aggressive player, so I'm thinking I would love to charge that Neapolitan line with my Prussians. However, it's probably not sensible. You've got those new Württemberg light infantry coming up behind. They're not far away at all. So if they weren't as far away, I think you've got an opportunity to basically put that Neapolitan brigade under real pressure and take out another battalion. Even with 2 losses, the Prussians should be able to deal with them. I think probably most sensible is to stay where they are and just fire. Now, I don't think they're going to be able to shake themselves out into line because they partially block the guns. Tell you what we do. Somebody did take the mickey out of me for preserving the guns, but preserve the guns is always a good thing, and plus they're actually lovely Swedish guns. They are going to attempt to basically move forward, sort of swing that way a bit, which they do. Now the reason for that is I then want to create enough room for this Prussian battalion to expand out. So that's what they'll try and do, which they successfully do. And that way, I think I should have enough room for the guns to fire. So we've managed to do that. There's not much else to be done over here. I think this the officer is already with this other battalion. It will continue to roll off another casualty, which it does. So they're now back to 2 casualties, so pretty much back to normality. The reserve Russian battalions that are back here, what to do with them? Nobody really, I don't think anybody came up with suggestions on what to do with these particularly, other than to support the Prussians. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to send this regiment in behind those Prussians there. I think that makes sense. Remember, Russians can only move as a group move if they are from the same regiment. So I decided this regiment, this is one regiment, this is another regiment. These are separate Jaegers. So this battalion here, or this regiment here, will move forward. How many moves? 2 moves forward, if it can. Throws a 3. Certainly can. The Jaegers, I think they'll just move 1 move into the back there, which they do as well. And these boys in the centre, I think they'll stay where they are for the moment. So I'll move all that and we're back shooting. Okay, so there you go. The Russians have moved up to support those Prussians that have shaken out into line. So we'll move on to some shooting. The artillery, first of all, they've got a fairly clear shot onto the end of that line. They're at short range? No, medium range, I think that is. So let me think. They would fire 36. They're 9 inches away. Let me check this out. Okay, so this is up to half, or just over. So if it's up to half range but not within 6, they get 2 dice. So that's basically what they get there. It's going to be a 4 to hit. 4 to hit. 2 shots. Ooh. That's 1, and it's a disorder. which means the Neapolitans are saving on one. Sorry, they need a 6 to save because they've been hit by artillery. They do not pass. So that's a test for them because, as we know, they are wavering. So they could run away. We'll continue the shooting. The Prussians here will fire 3 shots. It's... Ooh, how close is that to being close range? Yeah, I think that is close range. So, especially if I straighten that unit out where it should be. So 6. So we've got 3 dice hitting on a 3 to hit. That's 3 hits. Saving on a 3. Cock dice. Sorry, saving on a 5 for the Neapolitans. So they saved 2 but lost 1. So they have taken 2 losses. They need to do a break test because every time a wavering formation takes a loss, they have to do a break test. It was all going so well. They run from the field. I think that's right. Let me just double check. A 3. Pretty sure that's a runaway. Yeah. Unit breaks and is being destroyed and removed from play. Oh my goodness. The 2nd Battalion of the Neapolitan force runs away. Now, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have pushed them forward, but to be honest, they had to do something, otherwise what were they there for? Not looking so good now, the Neapolitans. Oh, I've just realised I didn't do the hand-to-hand from last turn. I didn't do the hand-to-hand. Let's see if we'll go back and do that now because I should have, remiss of me, I forgot about the ongoing hand-to-hand combat here, which has been a draw every round, but the Prussians have been taking losses. So this should have been in the French turn. We have 5 Neapolitan dice. We have 2 Allied Prussian dice. The Neapolitans will be hitting on a 4. The Prussians will be hitting on a 4. So let's see what happens. Sorry, I can't really show. All Neapolitans roll 4 hits, and the Prussians roll 1 hit. So can the Neapolitans save their 1 hit? They've thrown with 3. So that's, I think that's, I just need to double check their stamina. Sorry, their morale. They save on a 5 normally, but they go down to a 4 because they're in column. So no, they actually do lose a man this time. So the Prussians would be a 4, but they get cover of 2, and they save all of theirs. So this time round, the Neapolitans take a wound. The Prussians take nothing. So result of that melee, there's a bit of a change of fortune. So the Neapolitans suffered 1, have a support of 1, so that makes it even. So zeros. Prussians have a support from 2, which is what the building gives them. So the Prussians win the combat by 1. So it's a break test for the Neapolitans because they lost the melee. They roll a 6. 6. Let's check that one out. Okay, so the upshot of that is I knock a tree off. So the upshot of that is the Portuguese have to retire 1 move. So both these battalions retire one full move backwards, back to here, and I think the Neapolitans might have done their time. So I'll move all this and I'll be back. Okay, so the upshot of that was the Neapolitans fallen back, a full move backwards, and are both disordered. They're on 2 losses. They're on no losses. They don't need to take another break test because they've already taken one for, normally they have to take one for taking a loss because they're unreliable or wavering, but obviously they don't this time. However, the garrison can fire 2 shots out at, we're obviously going for the weakened one. It's going to be a 4 to hit with 2 shots, but miss both times. Because remember, that melee actually was in the French turn, so if I wasn't really doing diddles on the pure old Neapolitans. Right, so that is the end of this on this flank. Let's move across to this side. I keep saying Portuguese. What is it about Portuguese? Prussian battalion here will fire at the column on the end there. I get 3 shots, however they will get cover, so it's down to a 5. It's 1 hit and a disorder. The column is saving, rolls a 4, so saves that, however is disordered. And moving along, the Russian guards or grenadiers will fire straight forward at the line in front of them. We get 3 shots, but they are a poor shot, I believe. No, they're not a poor shot. So they have poor skirmishers. So they'll fire at the line in front of them. That'll be a 5 to hit. 1 hit. French save it. Oh no, yes they do. Throw it at 5 because they're not in a column. So I've got it wrong for a minute there, but they passed. The disordered Pavlovs will also fire at the line because it's an easier target than the column. Will hit on a 6 because they're disordered. No hits at all. And I'll remove the disorder while I come down the line. The Jagers, wow. So enfilading fire gives them double dice. So they are Russian Jagers. They are firing at close range. They're sharpshooters as well, so they can re-roll 1 miss anyway. So they get 6 dice, needing a 3. Oh, this could be very, very nasty. They missed with 2, so they get 4 hits, including 1 as a 6. So 4 saves for the column. Actually, it's only 1 wound. Gets away with it, really. 1 wound, but it is disordered, which is the nightmare situation. Once you get disordered in this game, it's really hard to stop it. And then to add insult to injury, the cannon, the heavy battery that's here, is going to fire straight forward at the column. Just outside 12 inches, so it's 2 dice because it's a half precision battery. Usually the Russian batteries are 3 guns strong, but I haven't painted up the 3rd one yet. So it's 2 shots. They'll be hitting on a 4, cover down to a 5, but back up because it's artillery firing. So 4's to hit. 1 hit, and they save on a 3, I think it is. Rolled a 6, so they're fine. So actually artillery didn't actually do anything to them this time. So upshot of that, at the end of the Prussian-Russian turn 4, is the first attack on the village has been driven off, and the attack on the river has stalled. What can the reinforcements and the French artillery do to change the plan? So we'll be back with turn 5. Okay, so it's turn 5. We're going to start on the left here again. This battalion is in a bit of poo-poo, to say the least. They've got the Jagers on their flank. They're disordered. I think disordered troops can retire, which is I think what they're going to try and do. Let me just double check that. Right, as I suspected, they can do a disorderly retreat, which I think they've got to do because they can't really stand having these Jaegers continue blasting in the flank. Trouble is, if they do that, they uncover the line. But I think they've got to do it and hope that the line does a manoeuvre. So they will do a disorderly retreat, which allows them to move backwards. They're still below their guns on the hill there, so that doesn't block the battery for the moment. And we'll get them back there. It means they will not get rid of their disorder this turn, but it might mean they survive a turn. 6 shots into the flank is not a good thing. That means this line here, what to do with that? So what we're going to do, we're going to take this column out of the line here and pull it south here. That's what we're going to try and do. Ah, it blunders! Oh my goodness, it blunders. So, a blunder test. So a blunder roll for that battalion. Let's see what it does. Rolls a 6. 6 on a blunder. If the enemy cannot, charge, will attempt to charge the closest enemy it can see. Oh my goodness. Well, the closest enemy is across the river. Let's see how many moves it does. Actually only moves 1 move. That's the worst thing. It just blunders straight across the river and won't even make contact. Oh dear. This flank is really not looking good all of a sudden for the French, so they have to move forward 6 inches, which gets them to there. Not in contact. They're also disordered because they're in the river. It's my local rule here. I'm saying that while troops are in the river, they're disordered, but they can continue to move forward because otherwise nothing would move. And that's a brigade failure for this brigade, so I can't even take any more wounds off that. That's horrible. That is really horrible. Okay, so plan B, I think, is we're going to have to send at least one of these battalions. Trouble is, then the command problem is going to be. So I think we can't leave that flank hanging, whatever happens. So we're going to have to peel off 2 of these battalions to go out that way and support. So this one is going to attempt to charge straight into those Jaegers. They'll need 2 moves. The other battalion will go with them and support. They get 5, which is 3 moves, which is more than they need. Okay, so they will charge forward. They get 3 potential moves, which is a whopping 36 inches. These Jaegers, however, can respond by evading, which I think they have to do. I think they've got to do, really. So evade works in Black Powder roll, command roll for them. They always get 1 evade. Always get 1 evade. So we'll see what they do. They roll a 10. So that would have been a failure. So they do indeed get 1 move. However, because they're in skirmish, they can move a full 12 inches away, which probably means they're safe for now. Which is lucky for them, because the rule is if skirmish evading troops get caught in the charge, they are destroyed. So the French get there for 2 moves, and then the extra 6 inches will just basically get them up to the edge of the river there. So that was a little bit more effective. It sends the skirmishers scurrying away and hopefully secures this flank a bit. However, it has peeled off 2 battalions that were really destined to go for the attack on the village, and it's also going to create some command challenges for the French. So these were the supporting brigade, but I think I had to do it. I think otherwise there was a danger the Russians would roll up this flank So that's the first 2 battalions moved of this this extra brigade down here. Next one, the artillery will move 1 move forward, and so they might as well try and move. How far can they move? They'll move one forward and unlimber. Whoops, which they do. To there. And then the 2 battalions that are left in this brigade will move. I think initially we'll just move them to, well, basically to line up with the battery. They roll a 10, however they are past a charge, which gives them +2, so that is 1 move for them. They're still slowed by the field, but at least they get to there, which actually might ironically help the command ability of this brigade commander. So, not what I was expecting for the French. A little bit of command difficulties, but such is the delight of black powder sometimes. Right, on to the Neapolitans. What are they going to do? Well, they've only got 2 battalions left, so I completely forgot the Neapolitans can't do anything because they're disordered. So instead, this guy will, or the commander, will just rally off, whoops, 1 casualty off this left-hand battalion. We'll take that roll that we rolled because I'm feeling generous to the poor Neapolitans because they never have any luck. So on to the Württembergers. It's a bit stronger over there than we were expecting. Let's start with the battalions in the middle. They will move up. I'm going to have a turn of firing the artillery at the building, see whether we can do any losses to them before we push in. So consequently, these 2 battalions are going to advance 2 moves, which they just, oh, actually 1 move, sorry, which is what they rolled, and they get up to there. So that's where the Württemberger first lot get to. Next I'll move their artillery, I think. No, I won't, because the hill's blocked. So we'll move the light infantry types. So there's 2 battalions there, 1 small battalion, 1 regular battalion. I think the small battalion will attempt to move into line. Might actually go into skirmish. Tell you what we'll do, we'll push into skirmish and push it forward. Rolls an 8. That just goes into skirmish, so I'll come back to that in a minute. I'll move that in a minute, and the remaining battalion I think will form into line and advance 1 move, which all it does is exactly that. So I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so you can see the Württembergers have moved up. The Württemberger light infantry moved up in line, and the skirmishers didn't manage to move anywhere. They just went straight into line. The artillery will attempt to move up behind the light infantry and form a unlimber there. They rolled a 7. They're only a command 1, so that means they they basically only move 1 move because they're slowed by the wood that they're heading through. Means they only get to there. So that is the end of the French turn. Let's do some shooting then. So the Württemberg light. Okay, so the Württembergers in line get 3 shots. I think it's outside of close range. Yeah, it is. So hitting on a 4, but they are marksmen, so they get a plus. They get a reroll. That's 2 hits, one of which is disorder. Reroll that miss. Still only 2 hits. So 2 hits on the Prussians, including a disorder. They are saving on a 4. Lose 1. Oh, that's pretty interesting. So I think that makes them shaken. Yes, it does indeed. So they are shaken and disordered. The riflemen here, these are rifle armed, so they are actually in range. So they only get 2 dice, but they do get a reroll, which is hitting on a 4. 1 hit, reroll, just the 1 hit. So another hit on the on the Prussians there, but they do luckily save that. So they are exactly on shake, so they don't need to do a shake test yet, unless we can put some more wounds on them. Which case we'll do the Neapolitan artillery. We'll fire at them. It's one shot, long range will be a 5. Hits with a 6. So they're saving on a 3 because of being hit by artillery, but they do pass it. So they're still hanging in there, only just. They've already been disordered, so there's not another disorder. Moving on into the centre here, the disordered Neapolitans. Probably their closest target is the built-up area, but that's an obscured target. So I think that battalion is going to fire at the Prussians. So it's only one shot. No, misses. The other will have to fire against the buildings. That's one shot. Would be a 6 probably because they're disordered. No, failed. So I'll take those disorders away while I think about it. And then the fresh Neapolitan battalions coming in will both fire one shot each onto the guys in the building. So that is going to be... Oops. Yeah, we're outside of 6, so it's going to be 4s to hit. One disordering hit. Guys in the building, throw 2. So the stamina is 4, but goes up 2 because they're in the built-up area, which makes it 2. So they pass that test, but they are disordered. Okay, the artillery, the French artillery here, will fire into the buildings as well. They are not within close range, but they do get 2 shots. They'll be hitting on a 4. Both hits. The guys in the building take 1 off their saving roll because they're being hit by artillery. So that will make them a 3. They lose 1. 1 would have been lost whatever happened. So that is a shaken brigade, shaken battalion there too. So 2 of the battalions, I'll get a marker in a minute, 2 of the Prussian battalions are shaken. Interesting. They may have to try and rotate them out. So the effect of that artillery and combined fire has make a difference. Also the accumulated combat, they took quite a... They took the odd little drip. It was a death by 1,000 cuts with the Neapolitans. So interesting. So carrying on around the table, the next bit of shooting is going to be up here. The Neapolitans on the brain. Must be ice cream time. These guys here will have to fire at the Prussians. It's 1 shot because they're in column, hitting on a 4. They're disordered 5. Cover 6. Nope, missed. And we'll take the disorder off while we're there. The column that charged forwards is within 6 inches, so it fires 1 dice, needing a 3. Well, it would be a 3, but down to a 4 because they do get cover, the Russians. It's a hit. They save on. That's not a save, so they lose a man as well. So that battalion takes a wound from the mad French charging forward. Next along we've got the line here, which will fire 3 shots at that very same target that their compatriots are trying to charge into. They'll be hitting on a 5. That's 1 disordering hit, and the Russians don't save it. So that's another loss on that Russian brigade and a battalion, and it is disordered. Interesting, very interesting. Over here, the artillery, I think here underneath the camera, will fire at the Pavlovs, I think. Yeah, be 1 shot, however, hitting on a 5, I think it'll be. No, whatever, that's a miss. And then the 2 battalions that move forward will both fire at the Pavlovs. Will be 4s, cover 5s. One hit, and it's a disorder on the Pavlovs too. Ooh, nasty. Can they save? Yes, they do. So no actual losses. So that was an interesting turn for the French. Apart from the mad battalion that's charged across the river there, they've stabilised this flank, because that one of the Russian battalions are disordered. The skirmishers have been thrown back across the river. The Prussians defending the village and the wood and the field beyond are both shaken, and the Württembergers are ready to sort of take over the assault, with a French brigade, or half a French brigade, coming up in support. It's going to be tight, this game. So we'll be back for turn 5, Allied turn. Okay, so Russian and Prussian turn 5. Not an awful lot more this lot can do over here, I don't think. I think on the Russian right, I think they're just going to push these Jaegers into the river, because they're still in skirmish, so they might as well move forward and just try and cause a bit of mayhem to those battalions of French that are there. So I think that's what they'll do there. I think both sides seem to have sort of forced each other to stop. These can't move, because they are both disordered. And that's all of this brigade, so I think we might take the opportunity to try and rally off. So the commander is going to try, sorry, you can't see, oops. Let's move it around so you can see a bit better. So the commander is going to try and rally off a casualty off this battalion in front of those French. Does it perfectly well, takes one of the casualties away. That might be helpful later on. The Prussians, now what to do with the Prussians? They're in a little bit of a pickle, as we might say. They've got 2 shaken battalions, and I think they're going to have to get out of dodge. So I think they're going to, are they within 12 of the enemy? They are, so they can do an initiative move for free. And I think they're just going to get out. So we're going to pull that battalion back, and we'll pull that battalion back, and we'll leave the defence to the Russians. So that'll be the Prussian initiative moves. I think their 2nd battalion here, or the one in reserve, I think we might try and swing it out here. And we'll... tricky. Yeah, we'll do that. We're going to swing this Prussian battalion out to here. It's going to try and form a line here. So let's roll for that. It fails, so it won't move. Okay, so I'll just move the initiative moves, and I'll be back. Right, there we are. The one battalion's pulled back here, the other one's over here. So for the Russian move, this extra battalion or brigade here, the Jaegers are going to go into the buildings, which they do with a 7, so they will occupy the built-up area. There we go. We'll just sling them in there. The this regiment here, do you know what? I think they're going to go on the attack. Why not? Why not? I'm going to try and send both battalions towards the Württemberger light infantry. So probably going to need quite a few moves. 1, 2 moves. They get 3. Okay. So they come gun-ho, charging straight out like this. The reason for doing this is I'm trying to give the Russians a bit of breathing time to reorganise the defences. I think also the Russians have extra stamina this line battalion is also, a light battalion, is a little bit isolated out here, so that's the rationale for it. We'll see whether it was a sensible move or not. We'll put the commander up there so he's able to influence it. Then the two remaining Russian battalions here will do a group move to try and link up and support. They also get 3 moves, my goodness me. So that's 2 moves because they're going to be slowed by all that. So they'll only go 18 inches, but still gets them all the way to there. Nice. There we go. So they have rushed forward as fast as they possibly can that direction. So that's all the Russians manoeuvred. Prussians can't do anything. Oh, we could take a reroll with the Prussian commander. Because actually, I'll tell you what we're going to do. With the army CNC has arrived on the table, so he will attempt. I can't really do any rerolls with him because I've already moved on. So no, we'll leave it as that. So we'll move to shooting for the Russians. Or in fact, we'll do defensive fire here for the Württembergers as the Russians charge in. So they get 3 dice. They'll be hitting on a 3, and they get a reroll. Oh, 3 hits, including a disorder on the Russians as they come charging forward. Maybe this was a bad mistake. The Russians are in column, so they are saving. They only take 1 loss with that roll. So there we go. We'll move on over for shooting and things. So the cannon here probably will, the only thing they can really fire is firing overhead at the skirmishers. So it'll be 1 dice at a 6, which they miss. The middle, nothing can fire. We'll come back to the hand. Oh, I might as well do the hand-to-hand while we're here. Okay, so we have both forces have 6 dice. 2, 4, 6. The Russians have tough fighter because it's one of their national characteristics. They are hitting on a, well, would be a 3 because of the charge, but they're disordered back down to a 4. Ooh, they get 1 reroll. So they get 3 hits. 3 hits. The Württembergers saving those 3. Oh my goodness, they save all 3. They hit back with 6 shots of their own. They also are tough fighters, which they need as well. They do 3. So the Russians saving 3 shots save all 3 as well. So no losses. However, the Russians do lose by 1. No, the Russians win by 1 because the Württembergers have no support, whereas the Russians do. So it's a break test for the Württembergers. They roll a 9, so they stay involved. But it is a 1-up to the Russians. So we'll put a little arrow there to show that. Okay, so that melee is done. The voltigeurs that moved into the built-up area will fire 2 shots at the front Württemberger unit. They're needing, well, throw double 6, so that's definitely a hit, and a disorder. However, the Württembergers save it, but they are disordered. Pop that on them. That'll delay the attack going in this go. Over here, nothing to shoot at in this area. We've got, well, this battalion here, the Prussians that are down to 2 losses now, will probably fire at the column that came charging steam across the river. It's sort of here really. So they're going to be hitting on a 3 down to a 4 because there's cover. It's 1 and it's a disordering hit. Ouch. However, the column saves, but it is disordered. The Grenadiers in front will fire 3 shots, but they are disordered. So we're going to be, it would be 3 back to a 4 because they're cover and disorder. No, it would be 5 actually, 5. They miss entirely. So moving across, the Pavlovs will fire at the line, I think. 3 shots will be hitting on a 6 because they're disordered and there's cover. They miss. Take these disorders off while I'm here. Put that one on that one because he's now disordered. And we have the voltigeurs, or sorry, not the voltigeurs, the Jager in the river here will fire 3 shots on the nearest column. They will be hitting on a 3. 2 hits, including a disorder. Column saves 1 but loses 1. Okay, so that's a disordered column here with a loss. The next thing we need to do is the Russian cannon. I think they'll fire at that column. No, they'll fire at the line in front of them. It's 2 shots. They will be hitting on a 5 because of cover. It's 1 hit. Save and roll for the French. Whoops. Save and roll for the French is a 4, which will be a loss because they lose 1 for a shaken French battalion. First French battalion to get a shaken. And I think that is the end of Russian turn 5. Yep, that's the end of Russian turn 5, so we'll be back with 6. So we're up to French and French allies turn 6. Situation is it's confused, I think, at best. I think that's how I describe it. Definitely confused. Let's start out here on the left hand flank for the what would be French left anyway. So over here, this column is disordered, this column is disordered, this column is not disordered. So I think what we're going to do is another retire with this battalion under initiative, disorderly retreat, pull it back to save it taking any more losses. And more importantly, the disorders are a pain. We'll then use this battalion to do an initiative move to turn it into line, and hopefully that will be enough to plug the gap. The next, so that's basically because these 2 battalions were part of the reserve brigade, so we'll move on to them next. It seems about out of place, but those were both initiative moves, so they could do them without any problem. The remainder of the brigade is these 2 battalions here. I think they will attempt to... do we want to push them straight into the building or try and soften it up with another round of firing? It's a fresh Jager battalion in there. But we need to try and take it quick before those Prussian battalions that were forced to retire are recovered. So I think what we're trying to do is just move these 2 battalions 3 moves straight forward, and if they manage to get into contact with the building, so be it. But they roll an 8 anyway, but actually an 8 gives them 2 moves because they're in pas de charge. First move will be slowed, so that gives them 18 inches, I think it is. There we go, gets them all the way up to there. So that's them move forward. Their guns are already there, but they might just inch them forward a bit so we can get into canister range. So they do a shuffle forward, gets them to there. Ooh. Try not to squash the Württembergers. So that is that brigade manoeuvred. We'll go back to this flank again. What to do? I think next move will be for this brigade here. So we've got a disordered and we've got a shaken brigade battalion, and this one's on 2 losses, and the other one. So that brigade is in real trouble. So these boys here will do nothing. These guys here will do a disorderly retreat back across the river, because that is a very, very dangerous place to be where they were. Means they will stay disordered, which is frustrating, but can't be helped. The battalion out there, this one here, just stay how it is for the moment. The thing is, they don't get many shots, but they do get a good saving roll when they're in column, so I'm kind of inclined to leave them in column. There's no artillery going to be firing on them, so I think we'll leave it there. We'll try and rally off, which we do. Rally off 1 off that, which makes them no longer shaken, which is important. Alright, that's all the manoeuvres on this side. Let's head over to the other flank. Centre and flank. So that left-hand battalion of the Württembergers is disordered, so it can't move anywhere. So I think, what should we do? I think the Württembergers will move, the other battalion of Württembergers will move forward one move and form into line. They roll a 9, which will basically just move them 1 move forward, because their commander is an 8, and in column they get an extra move, so they just come forward to about there, which is where they would have gone to go into column, go into line. So they don't manage to go into line just yet, but they are right there in front of the village. The rest of their command, these guys are obviously in combat, so they can't do anything. So the riflemen, the Jagers, are going to head up 1 full move forward, I think. They roll a 10, so they fail again. Can't give them anything for that. Could take a commander reroll. I think I'll do that. So they pass with that, which gets them up to about here. Now they can't support, skirmishers can't support this melee going on here, which is a shame. The other option I could have done there, and actually rolling that roll, I could have just formed them up just to provide some support, but the objective is to take this, so I think I'm going to try and put as much fire onto the buildings as I can this go, because they're saving on anything but a 1, so it's really hard to do any damage. So the remainder of this brigade is the artillery. They will attempt to do 1 move and unlimber on the hill, which they do. Right to about there. Perfect. Next on this flank is the Neapolitans, remainder of the Neapolitans. So they will attempt to do what I wanted to do last turn, which is basically head this way as far as they possibly can. They roll a 6, which is 1 move. Actually, no, it becomes a 5, so it's 2 moves actually. So they do come all the way over here, oops, to there. And that does mean they can start supporting the Württemberg light infantry, which is rather useful indeed. So maybe they have a role to play in this battle after all, the Neapolitans, apart from providing ice creams. Okay, that is all manoeuvres. We get on to some shooting and hand-to-hand. So, I don't think there's any shooting to be done over on this flank. Oh, let's see, has that Neapolitan column got a shot on the artillery? Yep, it's going to be 6s, because they're skirmish. No, it's actually only going to be 5s. 1 dice though. That's a miss. The Württemberg artillery that have moved up, I think they're going to fire 2 shots into the village. It is short range, or under long range, so it's 2 shots. They're hitting on a 4 down to a 5 because they're firing overhead. Failed to hit anything. The Jaegers will fire into the village. They get 2 shots and a reroll. We'll be hitting on a 3 because they're within short range. Both hits, and one is a disorder, most importantly. The guys in the building save anything but a 1s, but they save both, but they are disordered. I'll put that on in a minute. The Württemberg column here will fire. It's going to be hitting on a 3. Also hits. Jaegers don't save it, so they take a wound. So the Jaegers have taken a wound and are disordered. And the disordered Württemberger column will also fire. We'll be hitting on a 5 because it's disordered, but misses. And then behind the camera is the Neapolitan battery, which will fire 2 shots into the buildings. Sorry, 1 shot into the building. Will be hitting on a 6 because it's overhead and over half range. No effect. The next thing along will be the French battery that's moved up. That's now in close range, so it's hitting on a 3 with 3 dice. Still managed to miss 1, but got 2 hits. The defenders, now then, do they suffer? That's -2 for being hit by artillery at close range, which cancels out the building. Ooh, that's very nasty. So another loss on those Jaegers. So they've now got 2 casualties. I'll just mark that before I forget. And then I'll put some markers on it properly in a minute. Okay. Artillery firing in at very close range into the building is obviously the way to go. Moving along, we've got 2 French battalions that have moved up. They'll be hitting on a... they're firing at the building as well. They'll be hitting on a 4. Only 1 dice each. It's another hit on the Jaegers in the building. But they do save it this time. And we'll move across. Over on this flank, we've got the battalion there, which will fire 1 shot at the Prussians. We'll be hitting on a 5. Hits and disorders them. They save, they don't save. So they are back to 3 casualties and are back to shaken again. That's 3 casualties and a shake. Oh, now that is a very interesting situation, because that means 3 of the 4 Prussian battalions are now shaken. We might have to check the rules on that. I think that might be a break in command. Into the centre we've got this battalion here. We'll fire at the Grenadiers. We'll be hitting on 5s. Misses. The French line will also fire at the same guys here, the Grenadiers. That's 3 shots hitting on 5s. Really not been much shooting from those boys. Moving across to this side, we've got this line will fire at the Jaegers in the river. That's 3 shots. They're close range, but they are skirmisher and they're in cover, so that becomes 5s. That's a disordering hit. It isn't a death, but it is a disorder on those Jaegers, which might dampen their ardour a bit. The artillery here will fire 2 shots, sorry, 1 shot onto the Pavlov Grenadiers. We'll be hitting on a 5 probably. No, probably 6 actually. No effect. We'll take those disorders off the French that are here. And that is the end of French firing. but we do have a hand-to-hand to do. So let's go back over onto the other flank. So this is going to be interesting. So the French, the Württemberger troops were defeated last turn, but nobody took any losses. But the Russians are disordered. So basically the Russians will get +1 for winning the last round, but -1 because they're disordered, which means they're hitting on 6s. The Württembergers are also hitting on 6s. Hitting on 4s, and the Württembergers are also hitting on 4s because they are they're perfectly intact. They haven't lost anything. They're not disordered. They're not anything. So right, let's start with the Russians. 6 attacks, hitting on 4s. They get just 3 hits. Well, I suppose that's 50-50. The Württembergers hitting back. Also hitting on 4s. They get 3 hits as well. So but it was exactly as it should have been odds-wise. So the Russians saving their 3 hits. They would save on a 4, goes to a 3 because they're in attack column. They save them all. And the Württembergers are saving on 4s. They lose 1. They lose 1 casualty. I should have done a re-roll for both sides because they both get fighter. So I'll just mark that up, tough fighter. So the Russian re-roll doesn't hit. The Württemberger re-roll does hit. See if the Russians saved that hit. They did. So same result. It was 1-0 to the Russians. They get +1 because they are supported on this flank, so that gives them +2. The Württembergers, however, now have support from the 2 battalions of Neapolitans. This one on the flank, this one on the rear. So that becomes a complete draw again. So take the marker away. We'll put a counter down for the Württembergers losing a man, but that's an ongoing melee. They're holding up pretty well, the Württembergers, thanks to the support, at least moral support, of the Neapolitans. So, on to the Prussian and Russian turn. So, okay, turn 6 continues with the Allied turn, and I've had a chance to look it up, and yeah, it's not good news for the Allies. There are 3 of 4 Prussian battalions shaken, and the artillery don't count towards that, so basically that brigade has gone broken. So the Prussians have broken and will start to leave the table, which leaves the Russians in a precarious position at best. In hindsight, that charge by the Russians over there, Russians on that side, maybe wasn't the best option, but we didn't know what we didn't know. So, yeah, I don't often play Brigade Broken because I think it's a bit brutal, but for this game I'm going to because I just think I want to try and get a result. So sometimes it can continue forever. We've done 6 turns, and normally Black Powder games only go to about turn 8, so let's see where we go. So, first up for the will be now just the Russian army is any initiative moves first of all. So I think they're going to have to do an initiative move with these guys here, because these are obviously involved in a melee here. So what we're going to do, initiative move will be to bring this battalion to here to put some... Oh, I could... No, we're going to bring it up and put it into... No, just bring it forward to there. What I'm umming and ahhing is whether or not, again, my aggressive tendencies is to charge the is to charge those Württemberger Jager there, but I think that just would get them into all kinds of trouble. So no, I've changed my mind entirely. They are going to form a line and advance just to the edge of the field. They run with 3, so they could have done all sorts of things with that. So we'll move like that, put them into line, and there you go. Next battalion is ready for the meat grinder. The other good thing about that is it's providing support to this ongoing melee. The other battalion from this group is going to head this way as far as it can go, and because obviously this artillery is going to start retiring in a minute. We rolled 1 move, so because they're in the ploughed field they only get 6 inches, which gets them to there. So that is the Russian 2nd Brigade done. Now the Prussians, will do them next. So unfortunately they will have to start to retire. So we'll start with this battalion here. Rolls a blunder, but it always moves 1, so we won't worry about the blunder. Just moves 6 inches backwards, because it's slowed by the water there. Well, they seem to be going pretty well, and then suddenly it all went a bit pear-shaped, but such is often what happens in war games, isn't it? So that battalion's heading off. Don't really need the markers anymore because they're done. Next one along, we'll move the artillery, we'll limber up and move. They roll a 5, which is 3 moves. So 1 limber up and 2 moves gets them basically back to here. And they won't be able to fire this go. Then in the centre, this battalion, first of all, rolls 3 moves, so that is off the table and gone. The next one, this unattached battalion, will roll a 7, which is basically 1 move backwards. So the Russians are unsupported in that village now. Well, I suppose they've got the flank support, so it's something at least. And next battalion is this one here in the on the hedge line, which moves 3 moves back as well, which will take that one off the table. So I'll just clear up the mess and I'll be back. Right then, these 2 battalions have reached that point. The guns are in the woods, they're pulled back, and all of that are broken. The other battalions have run off the table. There's a big hole here. There's a big hole here for those French columns to exploit. The Russians over here, I'll tell you what they're going to do. They are going to try and limber up the guns and bring them over to plug the hole. Let's see if we can do that. They roll a 5, which is 3 moves. Interesting. So 1 move will limber them up. Well, this tree is just a tree, it's not actually a wood. They can move 1 move, which gets them to there. So that's 2 phases. And then another one will get them to here. The only problem with that is they are not going to be unlimbered. Oops. They're not going to be unlimbered. So they get to there, but they are limbered up, which it's asking for trouble. Asking for trouble. None of those, so we need to disorder No, that's a silly move. So no, they're going to come back a bit here. They're going to form back, so at least they've got a bit of space before those French. So if those French want to come after them, they've got to do 3 moves to get across the river and get them. So let's see whether that works out. On the other hand, over on the rest of the troops over this flank, I think they'll just stay exactly where they are. Yeah, I think that's all they can do, because the Jaegers are holding those guys up, and then the 2 lines are holding up most of these troops here. So I think we'll leave it at that. We'll go on to firing. First of all, we've got the Jaegers in the river. They will fire onto the line that's in front of them. They will be hitting on 3s. 2 hits. Oh, they get a reroll as well, I think, because they're marksmen. So 3 hits. The French save 2 of them, but suffer a wound. The Pavlovs fire straight ahead of themselves at the line there. 3 dice will be hitting on 5s. 1 hit, which is saved. And the line here will fire at the column there. So it's 3 dice hitting on 5s again. Missed. Ooh, that's nasty. It could be curtains here for the Russians and the Prussians. They've been let down by the Allies. Moving across, we've got 2 shots from the garrison, but it is disordered into the column that's coming at it, I think. So 2 shots. Oh, just thought what I could have done there. So I'm gentlemanly gamer, so I'm going to allow the gentlemanly officer. I forgot to the officer try and rally off one of the casualties on the Jaegers. It failed anyway. Failed to move, so forget that. So 2 shots by the Jaegers out onto the Württembergers. They are in close range, so that's going to be 3s to hit. Cock dice. 2. It's just 1 hit. Save and roll for the column fails, so that's a hit on the Württemberger column, but not a disorder, crucially. And then they can fire 1 more dice out, and they'll fire at the cannon with that out the other face, because in a built-up area you fire 2 dice maximum out of a face. So it's going to be would be 3, but back up to 4 because it counts as a skirmish target, and misses. So that's that all done. The line here will fire at the Jaegers. I'm going to say they can only fire only 2 of their 3 dice, because obviously they're right behind the combat there. So that's going to be 2 dice needing 3s down to a 4 because it's skirmish target. Get 2 hits. The Jaegers save 1 and lose 1. No disorders coming up this time, which is intriguing. And I think that's all the firing. So we'll do the melee. This was a draw last time. We've got 6 dice from the Russians. They are hitting on a 4 down to a 5 because they're disordered. That is pretty good roll, actually. 3 hits. 3 hits for the Russians on the Württembergers. Let's see what the Württembergs do for saving. They save 2 of them, so 1 goes through. And then 6 hits back from the Württembergers. Ooh, absolutely nothing, because they're hitting on 4s. However, they do get a reroll. They hit with a reroll. And let's see whether the Russians save it. They don't. Also, I think the Russians have a reroll as well, because they're tough fighters as well. They also hit with theirs, and it doesn't get saved. So the upshot of that is the Russians take 1 casualty, the Württembergers take 2, which makes the Württembergers shaken. and they lose the combat by 1. So let's look at this. So the Russians have 2 supports, 1 behind and 1 to the left. So that makes them to 3. The Württembergers have 1 behind and 1 to the side. So they lose the combat by 1. So it's a break test at -1. No, it's a break test flat because they're not shaken. So they rolled a 9. That means they will continue next round, but they are shaken. So the Russians win that melee and will continue next go, with the Württemberg light infantry a little bit worn out. Okay, so that's the end of turn 6. I feel like we're pretty much at the end of the road here for the, well, I don't know, we're at a crucial phase of the game. So right, I feel this is getting towards the meat and potatoes of the game. We're pretty much in for a decision, I think, fairly soon. So definitely advantages with the French and Allies, because although they've had a Neapolitan brigade half destroyed, they are definitely getting the better of the well, they pushed the Prussians off the table, and there's not an awful lot of Russians to plug the gap, and the Russians have gone very aggressive, which probably in hindsight wasn't the best move. Just been a turn later I wouldn't have done it, but this turn it looked like a good option. But there you go, such is the way of the game. Sometimes it makes you look a fool. Right, so let's start on the left for the French. Oh, that disorder needs to come off there for the Russians. So I'm tempted to try and put some pressure on this flank as well to stop the Russians redeploying across. So we'll start with this. So these 2 battalions, no, these 2 battalions were part of the ones that were right over there. So they will have to move on initiative because they're outside of their command over there. So to move them would be quite tricky. We'll add a lot to their rolls. But these guys are well within space here. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to advance these fellas to here to line the hedge like that, and we're going to bring, technically they have to, yeah, if they were advancing they'd have to advance towards the light infantry there. I want them to go into this gap here. Yes, I do. So we're going to roll for them to activate. They're outside, so they've got +1 on their activation because of outside of range of the general. They rolled an 8. Whoops, knock that over, it was an 8. They are in pas de charge, which brings it down to a 6. They're outside a command radius, which pushes it back to a 7. So it gives them 1 move, but it doesn't mean they can move the direction they want to, which is to there basically, and probably puts them back in command radius again, which is all to the good. Right, so that's those 2 done, and the rest of that brigade is these 2 over here. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do, it's all under initiative. So I think we're going to throw the Württembergers into the melee here, like that. No, did we hold off another turn? No, we're going to go for it. We're running out of time. We want to get forward. So they're going to pile in. That's an initiative charge, so I don't need to dice for that or anything. These guys will move up to support them in the rear, also as an initiative. Oh no, hang on. Ah, Dom, you got it wrong. That's the disorder for them. So, oh no, that was last turn. So no, that's fine. They haven't got a disorder. I think I could be a fool here, but I think that disorder was left over. I could have just cheated the Russians, but it's my darling Württembergers. Right, so that's them supporting their brethren going in on the village. The other initiative charges, I'm just thinking what to do. I think this one is going to support the attack on the village. Can I put 2 in on the village? I think I can, because they only fight out one side, don't they? Okay, so I think I've got this right. So because the 1st battalion, because the Württembergers are hitting one face, this lot can attack the other face. So that's what they're going to do. So this battalion will go in on this face as an initiative, supported by these fellas. So we've got a double front attack. You've got the Württembergers going in on the front, the French coming in the side. I think that's right. Reading through the rules, it appears that you can charge different faces of the town. So that could be very interesting indeed. So we'll move back to the French guns there. They're not really doing anything. They'll just wait, I think, for the moment. Yeah, I think we'll just stay where we are for the moment in case anything goes seriously wrong in the charge. This brigade here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 battalions, they will... I feel like we need to exploit that gap. So this battalion will attempt to charge the Grenadiers, and the one beside it will continue and try and hit the guns. So charging the Grenadiers, 8, which is down to a 6, which is 2 moves, which is enough to get them across the river and hit the the Grenadiers that are sitting there waiting, like that. Meanwhile, the other battalion rolls a 5, which is going to be 3 moves. My goodness me. After all that, they smash into the limbered artillery like this. Oh dear. Maybe that was a bad mistake for me to do, but I was hoping it needed 3 moves to get there, and I was hoping that the French would fail to get 3 moves, but unfortunately they didn't, and therefore that gun is history. And we have one more battalion here for the French. This one here will attempt to move to support that charge. Rolls an 8, which gives them 3 moves. They'll move to there to provide support. The pas de charge option is huge for command. Really gives the French a massive advantage in the attack. So I think that's it for now. In terms of charge, oh hang on, no, we've got the other flank to do. Got so excited, so much is going on this one. So moving across to this side of the table, the Jagers might as well stay there because they can start to fire at those fellas. These guys are in melee. We will attempt to so I could charge the Neapolitans into that reserve Russian brigade there, battalion rather, which I think I'm going to do. So they'll charge those. If nothing else, it means that the Russians have less support. And these boys will just move to there to support both. Either way, I'll decide which way I'm going to push it. Probably have to support that one because I don't want to lose the Württemberg light infantry. And I think that's everything on this wing as well. So let's start with some shooting. Not that there's going to be much. The cannon will fire at this line here. It's going to be 2 dice hitting on a 4, firing overhead 5. That's 2 hits, one of which is a disorder. The saving, they don't save either. So that's 2 wounds and a disorder on those. I'll mark that and come back in a minute. The rifleman will fire at them 2, which is going to be 2 shots with a re-roll hitting on 3. That's another 2 hits. Save and roll. Another one down. So that's 3 dead. So that is 1. The Russians have a stamina of 4 as a base. That would have shaken any other unit, but not the Russians. So let's try and do it with the Neapolitan battery firing at long range. We'll be needing a 6 because it's long range and overhead. No, that would have been awesome if the Neapolitans had managed to do it with their artillery at the end to shake that line. Because a shaken I need to check whether disordered can support, but we'll worry about that in a minute. So that's the shooting down here. Everything else is in charge. We'll do the defenders firing at the charging Württembergers. They're going to put 2 shots on them and 1 on the French column. So 2 shots will be on 3 to hit. It's 2 hits. 1 saved, 1 lost for the Württembergers. I'll put that down there so I remember. And then 1 shot out the other face onto the other column is a hit. They save it, however. So that is all the shooting on this wing. So moving across, the limbered artillery can't fire, obviously. The Russian line, Grenadiers being charged by that column, can fire. They are going to be hitting on a 4 down to a 3. Gives them 3s to hit. Or disorder and 3 hits. Oof. But all saved. But it is a disorder on the French column as it chunches across, but it would be anyway because it's going across the river. We've got, that's all the defense. So the gun can't fire. We've got this line will fire at this. Oh no, that's the one in melee. So both these lines will fire at the Pavlovs, which is 6 shots. It's going to be 3. Sorry, it's going to be 4 down to 5 because they've got cover. Wow. Look how many ones. 3 ones out of that. So it's 2 hits. And they're both saved. No disorder. 1 shot from the column firing at the Pavlovs. That's a miss because they needed a 5. And then the line against the Jagers will be 3s down to a 4. Missed again. Blimey. Terrible shooting. And the cannon, the French cannon over here, will fire at the Pavlovs. It's only 1 shot. It's going to be... actually, is it 1 shot? Let me just check. Yeah, it's 1 shot. Firing at long range and in cover, so 6s. Nope. Missed. So that's all the shooting done. We've got some interesting melees to come. Alright, let's start with this melee. We've got a French column supported by another French column attacking the guard or the grenadier in line. They get 7 dice. The French get 6. So we'll start with the Russians. They get 7. They need 4s to hit. They got 4 hits. 4 hits on the French. See what the result is of that. 0. They saved the lot. So the French hitting back, they have 6 dice. They are hitting on a 4 because they're disordered. They got 3 hits, which is kind of odds. Russian saves. They lose 2. So the Russians lose by 2 in that combat. They're supported once. So that makes it evens. No, that makes them down 1. Well, they lose the combat because they've got support. The French have got support. They lost the melee anyway, so the Russians need to do a test. So it's a straight break test because they're not shaken, and they've rolled a 3. Oh my goodness, did you see that in the dice tray? There we go, a 3. Jeez, that is a break. They have gone. Ouch, that is not good at all. Not good at all. So they rout. No, they've just gone. So much for guards. They just disintegrated on contact. They didn't like what's going on either side of them, and they were finished. This is feeling like game over here. Oh, I just thought actually, don't think it'll make any difference to the result. Well, it might do actually. The Russians had a tough fighter, which they hit with, but it didn't go through, so it doesn't matter. Doesn't affect the combat. So that's that. This melee here with the poor old gun against the French column. The Russians only get 1, which misses. French get 6. Move him out of the way. Hitting on 3s. That's 5 hits. Whoops. Saving rolls for the gun. We'll try the best. It's only 2 hits. 2 hits on. Just double check that on the position battery. Yeah, morale 4, but that does make them shaken. So 2 hits on them. That will be a test for them. Rolling an 8. Let's check this one out. Oh, whatever the result, if the artillery lose the combat, they are destroyed. So that's the gun gone too. So they break and go. Nowhere for either of those French battalions to continue their charge. So for the moment, that is it with them. We'll move on to the melees in the buildings. This could be the final countdown, as they say. The final countdown. Oh, sorry. Cut all that crap out. So we have. I think we're. How do we do this? So I think, yeah, well, it's 2 separate combats effectively that add up as the same result. So we have 6 for the French coming in on this side. 2, 4, 6, and 2 for the Russian defenders. The Russians are disordered, I think. Yes, they were disordered in the shooting, weren't they? Yes, they're disordered. So they're hitting on a 5. The French coming in are hitting on a 3. Put it somewhere where you can see the result. There we go. So I know Graham loves this. So blue dice, well, purpley dice are the Russians, needing 5s. The French are needing 3s. So it's 1 Russian hit. 2. Oh, only 3 French hits. That's surprising. So the 3 against from the French. 1 is lost by the defenders, so it's 1 more Russian death, and it was 1 on the French. which they save. So, upshot of that is 1-0 in the combat. But the building gives the Russians +2, so that pushes up to +1 in their favour, but the French are supported, so that is a flat draw for that result. So moving across the Württembergers, they are same thing, they are 6 against 2. I haven't put a casualty down there, sorry, let's pop that down on them. 6 against 2 is, let's do the dice again. So same as last time, the Russian dice are the purple ones. Oh, I can't put it where I can actually see it, there you go. Blimey, everything hits, both sides. Oh no, the Russians don't, because they're hitting on a 5 because they're disordered, so both Russian hits miss. They do get a re-roll, however. All the Württemberger hits hit, still miss with a re-roll. So the Württembergers trying to convert. Oh, they get 3 hits on the Russians. 3 dead. Württembergers for the win, hey? So that puts the Russians on 6 casualties, which means they are definitely shaken. And they are 2 over their stamina. So they need to do a break test at 2 over their stamina, which is a -2, -3 because they're shaken or disordered. I forget which way around it is. So -3 on the roll, which brings it down to a 2, which means they are broken and they run. Wow, that's immense result. So the combination of the double attack there, softened up with a bit of artillery initially, means that the Russians are kicked out of that village with a lot of casualties. Wow, amazing. That's the way to attack a village. So, meant to put 3 on. This guy's still got 3 wounds as well. 1, 2, 3. So the I think what we'll do is we'll occupy it with the well, it doesn't really matter. I think we'll occupy it with the French. The French guys, even though it was Württembergers did all the work, they'll occupy the town like that, which they can do because the enemy were defeated and routed off. So we're still going to melee over here. Can the Russians turn it around on this flank against the other Württembergers? We've got a shaken Württemberger unit with 6 dice, sorry, will be hitting on a 5 because it's shaken, and you've got 6 Russians hitting on a 4 because they're disordered. So let's do this. The Württembergers first. They needed 5s. Oh, it looked much better than it was. It's 1 hit. They do get a re-roll because they're tough fighter. Nope, so just the 1 hit for them. And the Russians hitting back. Six dice, needing 4s. Oof. Well, the dice have really fallen apart for both sides on that. Only 2 hits there on the Württembergers. We'll do the saving rolls for the Würts. They saved both of them. The Russians, they saved there as well. So it's a flat draw, 0-0. The Württembergers will take support from here. the Russians will take it. Oh, can they actually think about it? They're disordered, aren't they? I've forgotten. I need to check that up, see if they can be supported. Okay, I could be wrong, but I can't see anything to say they can't be supported disordered, which means it's one support there, which means it was a draw. So no overall result, no casualties, never happened. Nothing to see here, gentlemen. Over here we've got the defensive fire for the Russian column as the Neapolitans charge in. They rolled a 5, which is a hit. Not saved by the Neapolitans. They will have to do a break test because they're unreliable or whatever it is. They roll a 6 on a fire test. Holds its ground, so they continue in with the charge. That's fine. They only get 5 dice fighting, but they are hitting on 3s because they charged. Wow. Neapolitans hit with everything, and that's 5 hits. The Russians fight back with 6, hitting on 4s. Only 2 hits for the Russians. So let's do the saves for the Neapolitans. 2 hits they took. They take 2 casualties, so they are shaken. And the Russians took 5 hits. They lose 2. So that's 2 all in the result, which means it is a straight draw. Nobody's got any supports because the Allies used, the French used the Neapolitans to support these guys, so there's nothing left to support them, and the Russians used those to support that. So honours even. No result in that combat. It will continue next turn because they didn't start the turn shaken. They will, if they lose next turn, have to take a test. So, actually, thinking about it, then the Württembergers need to take a test because they finished the turn shaken. They rolled us an 8, so they are fine. So that is the end of French turn 7. And the game is pretty much done and dusted as far as I can see. The French have ripped through the centre, destroying that Grenadier Brigade or battalion and their associated artillery, so they're now through. But more importantly, they've taken the village, and now these Russians are in danger of being outflanked. I think this is history for the Russians, to be fair. We'll play their turn and then we'll see what the upshot is, and we might call it there. Okay, so Russian turn 7. Oh, this is difficult. I think I can't really see that the Russians have got anything to do other than to retire from the field, because they've only got the 2 battalions here on this flank, and the French are pouring across the river here. The Prussians, the Prussians will be gone, so we'll take them off, as will these. So there's nothing here at all. The village has fallen, and really there's nothing much more for the Russians that are out here. They're just going to get surrounded. You've got French pouring through the village, you've got the Württembergers pouring through the village. Unless there's some absolute, I mean, realistically, the Neapolitans are only very shortly off. Oh, in fact, Neapolitans are probably broken as a brigade, because that's another shake, and they've already lost 2 battalions, so they're probably broken as a brigade. But that doesn't really matter for the great in terms of the strategic position, because there's an awful lot of French coming down the pan. But let's see what happens. The yeah, I don't see this. I can't see this going anywhere. These are disordered. These are disordered. These aren't. This is the one active battalion the Russians have. So I think they're going to throw it straight back into the village and see what they can do. So they'll need to turn round and charge. And they failed. They failed their command roll. Or take a commander-in-chief re-roll. They roll a 6, which actually is just enough. So they do turn round and do charge into there. And I hope that they can retake the village immediately. It's going to be tough, but because that's an untouched French battalion in there. So that is that. There's really nothing else they can do. Because that was a commander re-roll. Oh, so that means they can activate the commander again, can't they? Because it didn't actually technically mean this brigade failed its orders. So he is going to try and rally off something off this. So he does. So they are down to 2. Oops. Down to just 2 losses on that brigade, on that battalion. And what else should we do? I mean, this over here is just a nightmare. I don't really know what to do, because the Pavlovs are going to get hit in the flank in a minute. I think the most sensible thing to do is for the Jagers to try and pull out and come around to cover the left flank of the Pavlovs, which they do with 3 moves. Okay, so the battery ran out on the camera, but these guys had 3 moves, so they did 2 moves over and then formed line, ready to give the French a bit of a volley in their flank. Other than that, nothing much else has happened other than what you saw. So we'll carry on with some shooting. The Russian line there will fire against the Jagers, because that's all they can fire at. 2 shots. They are disordered, however, and it's a skirmish target. Sorry, yeah, 2 shots, because I'm saying they're only got a visibility. They're blocked by the rest. So it's going to be 6s. They miss. The French defending the village will get a shot at the battalion charging in. That's 2 shots, needing 3s. That's 2 hits on the Russians. Ooh, 2 hits, 2 wounds. That's a fresh battalion. He's already taken 2 losses. That's not good, but crucially, I guess, no disorder. Nothing else to fire here. We've got the Russian Jagers firing into the flank of that French battalion. So it means it's 6 dice with 1 re-roll. Its effective range, so it's going to be 4s to hit. That is 4 hits. Oops. Saving rolls. It's all saved. So even though, did I do a 6? I think I did the 6. I could be wrong, but I think I did the 6. So that's a disorder. I'm so excited about the hits, I forgot. And the Pavlovs will fire against that line over there, which is going to be 5s to hit. So 1 hit. French saving roll is failed, so they take another wound over there, which pushes them back to shake again. So at least that's 1 battalion off their back. So that is all the shooting done. Combat. Well, the one combat that really matters, I guess, is this one in the village. We have Russians charging in. They have 6 dice with a reroll, 2, 4, 6, hitting on a 3. I need the reroll there. All 6 hits. All 6 hits. Saving rolls for the French. There's a cocked dice there. Just 1 hit goes through. 1 hit. So the 2 French defenders fighting back. Whoop. They hit with 1. Russian column saves it. So the upshot of that is a 1-0 to the Russians. They can draw support from them, which is risky because it leaves that column on. But I think we need to try and take that combat. So that's 2-0 to the Russians. But it won't do any good because the French get +2 for defending. So that's a draw. It's a draw, that melee. We'll continue next round. Over here, let's do what happens with the Russian column against the Württembergers. The Russians are on 6s. 6 dice. They're disordered, so they're hitting on 5s. They get 2 hits. The defending them will be 4s. Save 1, lost 1. So the Württembergers take 1 wound, and then the Württembergers hitting back with 6 dice. They'll be hitting on 5s as well because there was a draw that round. Nothing happened. They get with a reroll. No, just 2 hits for them against the Russians, who do 1 as well. So it's a 1-1 draw on that melee. The Russians are now on 5. The Württembergers are on. Russians are now on 3. The Württembergers are on 4. It was 1-1. The Russians can't get any support here. The Württembergers, I think they're going to take the Neapolitan support, which means they win by 1. So the Russians will need to do a break test. Well, both sides will have to take a break test because the Württembergers were shaken. Russian roll a 7. It's 7, so I think that's going to be continue. The Württembergers are at -1, so they roll a 5. Well, 6 down to a 5. 5, retire 1 full move. One full move and become disordered. So the result of that combat is the Württembergers retire back to here, shaken and disordered. Push it back to 3 losses because you take the excess off, and the Russians stay where they are. Then we have the Neapolitans versus the Russians. Neapolitans are shaken. They only get 5 dice. It was a draw last turn, so they need a 5. Blimey, they get 2 hits. 2 hits on the Russians. Oh, a 1 and a 2, which means the Russians take 2 losses. Wow, wasn't expecting that. Can the Neapolitans carry it at the end? So that will shake that Russian battalion. They, however, have 6 fighting back. Hitting on, they're not disordered, so they're hitting on 4s. They get a reroll because Russians are tough fighters, but didn't do anything with it. So 4 hits on the Neapolitans. Oof, which is 3. 3 dead. So 3-2, which means the Neapolitans definitely lose the melee. However, they have shaken that Russian battalion. The Neapolitans need to take a break test at -2, -3 actually, and that is them gone. Rolled a 3, they have gone. Well, they rolled a 4 actually, but it's down to whatever. Whatever it is, they're dead, and they run off the table. which definitely means the other battalion is now in a broken brigade, and will start to leave the table itself. They fought pretty manfully, actually. I have to say they did rather better than I was expecting. I thought their commander aging alone would cause them problems, but they seem to have stuck it out. So we'll put broken on that brigade, and the guns at the back will have to retire off as well. So, end of turn 7, and I think I am going to call it a French victory, French and Allied victory. The Russians have shaken battalion, virtually shaken battalion, and these two, well, that disorder will come off. That's something at least. I can't see there's any way they can push on and win this battle. In all seriousness, they're being outflanked on both sides. Look at the number of French battalions still uncommitted. There's one Pavlov and one Jager battalion holding up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 French battalions, and that numbers will tell in the end. So the French have taken the village. They have broken the Prussians. How far off are they breaking the Russians? Still some way off breaking the Russians. The Russians have only lost only one battalion, and the guns don't count to the overall total. But even so, I think that's a fairly devastating win for the French. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like, share it with your friends, with your auntie, with your uncles, your Nancy's. Dislike if you did. Comment in the comment section down below what you'd like to see next. Thanks for those who contributed some suggestions. The rest of you who were very positive about it but didn't, because they're a bit shy about doing so, please do. You know, at the end of the day, even if you don't know the rule system, you know, we all, well, most of us follow military history, and seeing, you know, just being able to say tactically what you'd want to have happen is always fun. But I appreciate those who just wanted to watch, and that's really good too. So subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I will see you again soon for another game. This is Dom, signing out.